Good evening, this is Atmospheric Alex here with yet another severe weather outlook and discussion forecasting video. I know it's been a little bit since I've last seen you all. I've been a little bit busy lately and the internet has been a bit weird, but I'm glad I am finally back to give you all the updates that you need to stay safe. And it has been quite the busy past couple of days in the weather as well. Look at that going on in the northern plains yesterday and even in the high plains. We had quite a bit of severe weather popping off up in Montana. Look at that, a tornado warning in Montana. Yeah, believe it or not, it's actually normal for that to happen at this time of year. So that is quite interesting. And as we move further now to the southeast, look at all your thunderstorm activity that has been going on over the past couple of days. There has been some insane downpours that have been seen across a lot of areas. My area over here, look at that, just absolutely drenched in rain yesterday. Had a ditch nearby flood over a little bit. It has been absolutely insane. It has been really feeling like June out there. So now we're going to get into all the real analysis of this video. We are talking about a level 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, a slight risk for severe weather today across Montana, South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. Some state names I have not said in a very long time. This is your summer-like pattern here. And then, of course, Oklahoma, because they just can't stop. They cannot stop this year. I don't get it. We could even see an upgrade to an enhanced risk due to latest model data with very damaging winds being possible tonight. And you have your marginal risk out here. We'll have to see what happens. I'm very skeptical about all that, but we could see more severe weather for areas like Maryland, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, Western North Carolina to be exact, East Tennessee, Northern Georgia, and portions of Alabama. A little more skeptical on East Tennessee, though. On our tornado risk, we do have broad 2% risk areas, so nothing too special. And for our wind risk here, I think we could see a hatch risk down here. I'm going to be completely honest. You know, these areas right within here could definitely be receiving up to 70 to 80 mile an hour winds tonight. Those storms do look vicious on the HRRR. We'll take a look at that in a minute. And of course, up here, your general 15% non-hatched risk. For hail, again, yeah, definitely some very large hail, 2 to 3 inches in diameter for Montana and Wyoming. Now to tomorrow, did the risk change? It somehow did. Looks pretty much the same here. Montana, North Dakota, this time South Dakota, portions of Wyoming, Nebraska, and Kansas, yet again on your slight risk. Something out here in North Carolina, Virginia, but let's not really talk about that right now as a very low risk. Your tornado risk, just a large 2%. Could we see an upgrade? Not really seeing it right now, but that could change. Into your wind risk, we're definitely going to be talking about very damaging 70 to 80 mile an hour winds up there. And then for your hail risk, again, 2 to 3, even 3.5 inch diameter hail risk for those areas as well. Nothing changing with that. How about Monday's risk? Another slight risk for severe weather for South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota here getting in on it, and Iowa. We're going to have to really watch that one, as this could really uptrend over the next few days. I've been seeing some crazy model runs here. Definitely supportive of a pretty big trough moving through. Definitely could see a heightened tornado risk with Monday's threat. For Tuesday, talking about a massive slight risk for severe weather in Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Colorado out here as well. And then into Wednesday here, we are talking about it getting even further to the east here, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, Wisconsin here. Look at this, including cities like Chicago. You could be under the threat for severe weather. So your season hasn't been terribly active yet, but that could change maybe on Wednesday. We're just going to have to wait and see. And yeah, St. Louis, you've been dealing with way too much this year. Well, we're going to see even more severe weather. It just doesn't stop, right? And here's what the radar could look like later this evening to tonight. Supercells popping off across Montana. It seems weird to say, but it is totally normal. Lewiston, Montana. Look at that. 2 supercells moving through. Again, not a forecast. Look at, geez, bit of a flash flooding risk. Look at all those supercells training on top of each other going into the night hours. I guess we're really going to need to watch this. And yeah, definitely big time explosion of severe weather weather around Jordan, Glasgow, and Wolf Point going in around really 3 to 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Again, this goes pretty late into the night, and even some damaging wind segments are really beginning to develop. We're going to have to really monitor that. Further south into Wyoming, that feels weird to say, doesn't it? We got some storms firing off along the front range here of the Rockies, going out near Douglas, Scotts Bluff out here. Casper, I think, was even getting in on some of it, really around 4 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time here. And we're going to continue seeing this move off to the east overnight. We could see more pop-up supercells and severe weather along your front range. Your storms move on off to the east here, but you could see some cold pooling, which could push it back to the east, and boom, more initiation going back off to the west. Again, terrain-driven events are expected tonight. How about further east here? We'll look at this across portions of southern South Dakota here. Look at that big conglomeration of severe weather, almost kind of a bit of a line here. That's going to contain a lot of wind with it. 60, 70 mile an hour winds, could see a gust higher than that. This is getting in and around 6 to 9 p.m. Mountain Time tonight. That could be something to watch for as that pushes off to the east. And yeah, definitely looking quite intense here, even moving through Pierre there later on tonight. That's not really set in stone just yet. How about for our southern risk area? Let's go to Oklahoma here. This is kind of going to be a bit shocking. Supercells beginning to really fire up here around 7 to 10 p.m. tonight. Something to really watch for. But look at this. Big time explosion. Look at all of these storms that fire. Look at out here getting into the Texas Panhandle, into far southwestern Kansas. We're talking about this going in around 2 to 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. A big old line begins to form. Tons of very damaging winds blast right through OKC, and it even points to the east, could be up to 80 miles an hour with that segment there, and everything really just merges on in with itself into tomorrow morning, and you've got this gigantic line here pushing off to the south here. Definitely going to be a big time threat of damaging winds, some hail, and even a tornado risk along the line. Certainly cannot be ruled out into tomorrow morning. Getting into early tomorrow afternoon, even getting close to Dallas. Goodness gracious. How about your severe weather parameters? Further up to the north here, we're definitely seeing some of your parameters across Montana, so a scattered tornado cannot be ruled out, and then it completely goes poof into the night. Further south, your parameters are a lot more heightened in your reds, even into your hot pinks. I should switch the pen size here so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. Look at that. A very primed, very intense environment here for cell development, and it really does look quite serious going into the night hours. Then by tomorrow morning, it will all die out very slowly. Well, let's move into tomorrow now. Again, supercell development expected across central Montana here. Definitely could see a tornado risk with cells just like that fire up. If they are individual, if they're discrete in nature, could promote definitely a better tornado risk. And you do have a very intense line of storms pushing through, very elevated in nature, but you will definitely be seeing 70 to 80 mile an hour gusts along that line from Havre, Lewiston, Jordan, Glasgow, Wolf Point, yet again, Billings, Miles City could be introduced in that as well. And then this out here, we'll get into that in a minute, going into South Dakota. This continues on through in some very intense segments here. We'll get near Miles City. Could we see gusts higher than 80? It is definitely a possibility. Look at that, and then your overnight orographic lifting effect here. Your terrain-enhanced thunderstorm development here could be a bit of an issue too, with flash flooding into the night hours tomorrow night. How about further east here? You're going to see your first line really, pop off here. Look at this. Again, 70 to maybe 80 mile an hour winds with that is a possibility, pushing into southern North Dakota and northern South Dakota. A bit confusing, right? And then further south, again, this is going to pack a bunch of dry air with it too. Generally what happens is in your front range, your storms actually are very high base. They develop very high up in the atmosphere, and the winds are driven down by a ton of dry air rushing on through, causing a cascade of damaging, destructive winds. That is going to be something to watch for. Look at that right there. Very classic Boeing segment there through Bismarck, Mobridge, Pierre there. That certainly, we could even potentially see a long-lived mesoscale convective system, if not even a derecho. I don't like using that word, but definitely a possibility. This continues into Minnesota, and goodness gracious, even into Duluth. Quite an aggressive model run. I don't really think it'll happen that exact way, but we're going to have to watch. Further south into Nebraska here, again, your line pushes off the front range here. Could be quite significant around Scottsbluff, Alliance, Sidney, Chadron into North Platte here in Nebraska tomorrow night. Definitely packing a punch with it. I think tomorrow could definitely be thrown up as an enhanced risk for very significant destructive winds. How about your parameters for tomorrow? Well, you do certainly see it here. Oh, look at this. Definitely, if you see some supercells, could contain a tornado risk, and I don't know about a strong tornado risk. We're going to have to keep a very close eye on things. I can't stress this enough. Along the front range of Montana up here, Wyoming, these areas really through here where supercells can grow and develop. And you see some elevated parameters going down here as well. Just parameters all over the place. A favorable environment for all hazards. Well, let's look at a bit more lower resolution model. This is your NAM 3-kilometer model going on into Monday here. It shows a gigantic line of severe thunderstorms. Wow. Again, this model does tend to show linear segments, so this has quite a bias. I wouldn't quite start freaking out about 80-mile-an-hour winds along a large swath just yet, but definitely a widespread severe weather event / outbreak is possible on Monday. And, a lot of wind shear could kick into this as well. We could see definitely a notable tornado risk really begin to get going. And some more of your segments down there. Look at those supercells. Again, off your front range, you have your terrain really enhancing the severe weather risk, pushing off into South Dakota, Nebraska here. That is something to watch. Going further east, I'm a broken record at this point, aren't I? Look at this in your Minneapolis metro area, your Twin Cities here, getting absolutely slammed by severe weather into a Monday evening. Not a forecast, but a possibility. Look at that right there. Very damaging winds along that line. That really begins to bow out more. This is, again, a linear biased model. Please do not take this into consideration fully. Just know that the coverage of severe weather will be widespread, which could result in an outbreak. Just know that. How about your storm energy? Very important for your damaging wind risk. Well, yes, we're talking about 4,000 to 5,000 storm energy across a large area here as we continue on through. Boom, when your storms pop off, it rapidly erodes your environment, though. This might erode a little too fast on your NAM model, and this could continue for quite some time into Iowa and Nebraska here, so we got to really watch the forecast and the models. Severe weather parameters here, you certainly will be seeing some right when they first blow up here into your red colors here through Supercell Composite. And then even getting into your orange colors along the line, spin-up tornadoes are likely going to occur. And then if anything out here occurs, any supercells, definitely going to be a tornado-favored environment with a ton of backing, a ton of your wind shifting aloft here. And down here, just a ton of hotspots for tornadic activity that we're going to have to watch out for. And look at your wind barbs down here. Going to have some increased wind shear going on down here across Kansas. Just a little bit of everything, everywhere, all of the time. This is going to be an active stretch of severe weather coming right up. Your low-res NAM model here, definitely pick out where your severe weather could be occurring on Tuesday. Look into Iowa here. Look at this discrete supercell in Kansas. That's a concerning look, isn't it? And you can see it kind of dying off into Tuesday night. And here you go, your severe weather parameters. Yeah, goodness gracious, very favorable. I don't think volatile, but definitely a very favorable environment here for severe weather. And you can see a ton of wind shear overnight. Any supercells in this environment could promote a strong tornado risk, believe it or not. We're going to be keeping our eyes really close on that, and that just kind of continues throughout the night. But hang on tight, that is not all we're going to be seeing. Look at your European model here. We're going to look further into time at your storm energy. You can see Wednesday, just a massive, massive area of 2,000 to 3,000 Cape. So certainly going to be severe weather in just random parts of the U.S. here. Going on into Wednesday. Thursday, nothing changes, same thing. Friday, goodness gracious, this is way overdone, but you get the idea. Severe weather will certainly remain active. Upwards of 6,500 Cape, even closing in on 7,000. That may be very overdone, but still regardless, you're going to be seeing active severe weather in your northern and high plains here. and this just continues, you almost get into a Ring of Fire type configuration here with mesoscale convective systems riding like that and a very favorable pool of 4,000 storm energy here. And that would promote, again, damaging winds, some hail, and tornado risk as well. And this just kind of hangs out near southeast. Severe weather just popping up in the middle of the afternoon and evening will be a regular occurrence for many going on through. And this continues next Wednesday, next Thursday. I mean, we're going all the way to the end, and this just continues. I mean, this pattern is just active out there. So if you love thunderstorms, wow, you are going to be absolutely loving the upcoming pattern here. It is going to promote daytime severe weather chances and daily severe weather chances for much of the eastern US. So we'll see if anybody gets lucky, right? Of course, if you didn't look at my thumbnail, which I hope you did, because if not, that'd be pretty problematic, we do have a little bit of a question mark over here in terms of tropical weather activity. I'll start off by saying this. We will not see a hurricane. It's not going to happen, all right? So if anyone tries to show you a mile run of a hurricane cutting up through the Gulf, please don't believe it. It is not real. What we could be seeing instead is you see some isolated member agreement from the GEFS, so take it with a very big grain of salt. We are talking about maybe a bit of a tropical disturbance trying to form down there, and maybe something also going into, well, late June here. You see a couple of your members here kind of agreeing on an isolated pocket of wind and rain moving across the Gulf. Maybe some rotation causing a disturbance, but there's not a lot of certainty right now. Eastern Pacific could see another hurricane, though, by the time we get to that time frame. How about your most accurate model, your European model? This is extremely important to look at here, and your European ensemble here. You can see a ton of vorticity, a ton of spin down here coming off of South America, but notice how none of that ever gets going. So again, your GFS model, like I said, it'll take activity here, swing it up into the Gulf as a major hurricane, and people are going to go crazy for it online. So again, if you do run into a thumbnail like that or video like that, do not take it seriously. It likely won't happen. Unless we're in the peak of hurricane season, then please, do your research on that. But we could be talking about potentially something. Probably wind and rain moving into the Gulf. I'm not seeing much more of anything else, but something to watch. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to my little corner of the weather community, share it with friends and family on social media, as it will greatly help spread the word about all our upcoming severe weather risks and then whatever this is down here, right? Notice how I didn't put a big red X and a hurricane icon, right? All right, have a wonderful night, everyone. Stay weather aware. Again, severe weather, not going to be stopping for quite some time, so buckle up.